Hello, everyone, and welcome to Triangle of Fans. This is Monish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. The NBA free agency has got to be one of the most exciting times for an NBA nerd like us. Players are moving left, right, and center, or in this case, should I call it east, west, north, and south? Teams are restacking their entire roster, or if you're OKC, you're restacking your draft picks. In today's episode, we'll talk a lot about the trades that have been happening over the weekend and the last few days. We'll specifically focus on some of the big moves that happened, say big money moves that have happened, some of the moves that did not happen that we probably expected would happen. We'll also focus on some of the rookie max extensions, so some big paydays for players like Jayson Tatum, Donovan Mitchell also was involved, all of that. And to close out today's episode, we'll also look at Lakers. They're building an army. It's going to be a fun talk. Stay tuned. Hey Nishant, the last time we spoke about some moves that might happen, but it looked like the entire NBA got reshuffled since the last time we spoke. So many players moving everywhere.
Yeah, I think this is easily one of the busiest off seasons we've seen, at least in recent memory. And by recent, I mean a decade or two. Heck, forget players. There are teams that are moving. Toronto's moved to another country altogether for this season, and they're going to be playing this
Absolutely.
season out of Tampa. Tampa, by the way, seem to have hit a sporting jackpot this season. Like they got Tom Brady and Gronk, and that whole Buccaneer revolution happened, and now they have an NBA team where there was none before. But yeah, I think this is jokes about this is easily at least the busiest off season in the first 1 week that we've seen so far that I've ever witnessed, and I've been following this for more than 2 decades now.
Absolutely. And some big names have moved, some probably waiting to move, like the Giannis. I'm looking at you. But let's talk about the ones that have happened, right? And let's jump right in because we have a lot of content to cover today and a lot of players to cover today. The one big surprising move I think was Gordon Hayward. He opted out of his 34 million contract in Boston, and that kind of seemed a surprise, right? Who was going to pay for Gordon Hayward? And here you go, Charlotte Hornets come in and they pay him. They give him a 4-year deal, 120 million. Wow, if you're Gordon Hayward, you knew this was happening. This is the reason you opt out for of something like a 34 million contract from the Celtics. But that was a surprising move because Gordon Hayward, as good as a player he is, he hasn't done anything over the last few years, given his troubles with injury, also being not on the first team anymore because of injury. He's got out and Marcus Smart replaced him. And here you go, you get 120 million for the next 4 years, over the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think he knew this contract was out for sure. Nobody, unless you're a reigning MVP or a player of that caliber, nobody opts out of an existing contract, especially a contract that the league perceives to be already way too high for the player's caliber. Nobody opts out of something like that unless they know there's something else on the table. So for sure, he knew the Charlotte offer was on, right? It's a slight pay cut, but it guarantees him a starter role. It guarantees him more importance on the team. He's not coming off the bench, yada, yada, yada. Great for him. Uh, there's going to be a lot of debates on whether this was another characteristically horrible move from Michael Jordan and his front office, or is this really a steal? And I don't think it's a steal by any stretch. First of all, Gordon Hayward, even the player that he was in Utah, I don't know if he deserves this kind of money guaranteed for 4 years. If it was a shorter contract, maybe, but guaranteed money. And that's Gordon Hayward in Utah. Kind of like Oladipo, right? He exploded and then where'd he go? It's been injuries and injuries and injuries. With Gordon Hayward, same story. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but 30 million a year guaranteed for 4 years, that's a lot to commit to one player, especially when you're like rock bottom franchise trying to claw its way up, and in a small market where it's difficult to land stars as it is. I don't know. It just feels like they've locked themselves into a team unfriendly deal,
Mm-hmm.
and they've overpaid. But part of the reason they've overpaid, right, is the absolute shortage of wing players in general in this offseason, but in the NBA at large, right?
Yeah.
The 80s and 90s were the era of the bigs and the wings, and the guards were just you had some all-time greats, but largely it was the era of the bigs and the wings. And then came the whole small ball revolution. And what has happened in the small ball revolution is now guards that can't really do much on defense, etc., etc. A lot of frailties that would have caused them in previous decades are now hyper valued as long as they can shoot the three. Like Trey Young, he's barely 6 feet tall, can't defend to save his life, but he can shoot the three. And yes, he's a great playmaker also, but he can shoot the three, and he's a natural born scorer, and so he's incredibly overvalued today than he would have been, say, even 10 years ago. Now, another outcome of this Golden State small ball revolution is there are no traditional bigs anymore, at least not really ones that count that much. It's all about the stretch big now. Can you space the floor? Can you shoot the three? Like Mark Gasol is a stretch big today. He really wasn't when he came into the league. That's how much evolution the Golden State system demanded. Somewhere in all of this, wings kind of got relegated. Like that elite two-way offense, defense, that got relegated. Why is Kawhi so valuable? Like, think about it. There have been players like him in the past. Yes, he's elite, but there have been players like him in the past. Why is he so valuable today? Because there's hardly anyone else who does what he does. Play at that level on both ends of the court. LeBron can, but off late he's chosen not to do as much on defense. Last season was an exception. I thought he put in a great defensive shift, but not quite Miami LeBron, right? So there's hardly anyone left. Jimmy Butler maybe is the only other guy that comes to mind, like a proper natural two-way wing. And that's kind of the reason why Gordon Hayward is so valuable today, because there's hardly anyone in that position that can go both ways and run an offense and get his own points. He's a unicorn breed in the league right now, sadly. And that's part of the reason why he got overpaid. He still got overpaid, but that explains a bit of why.
Yeah, does that make Charlotte any more relevant? You have Gordon Hayward now as your face of the franchise, but yeah, I think the face of the franchise is still Michael Jordan. But this was a bad move. I mean, I can't see one thing that could work out of this move, right? I mean, Gordon Hayward, yeah, he's entering his years where the twilight of his career, or you could say just before the twilight of his career. He's not going to be the peak player that you thought he would when you first saw him, right? And so I really don't know what they're looking for. I really struggle to find some positives from this move.
Yeah, I guess the only explanation is that they got an experienced player to kind of mentor their. He's really not even that vocal leader type, right? It's not like you got a Rondo or something like that, where the intangibles are so valuable that you overpay for it. Maybe there is something there. I don't know, but that's the only explanation I can think of, is an experienced kind of semi-veteran guy that can mentor the Devontae Grahams and the Terry Roziers and etc. None of them are all that young, but they're still young. But the Terry Rozier thing makes me laugh a bit, right? Because he had quite a publicly vocal fallout with Gordon Hayward in Boston, and Rozier was pissed off that his touches and his shots were getting limited because of how much Gordon Hayward got the ball. And Rozier eventually wanted out, and they tossed him for Kemba, and seemed like a win-win at that point in time. And here they are, same team again, just off a season where Rozier kind of established himself as a premier attacking option in Charlotte alongside Devontae Graham. Here comes Gordon Hayward again. Highest paid guy on the floor, probably the prime ball receiver, highest usage guy, as long as he's fit. That's an interesting dynamic. But I think, overpaying aside, I think they have a decent starting five, Charlotte. I think it'll be fun to see them next season. They've definitely moved themselves slightly upwards beyond the reach of, let's say, a New York Knicks, which is not saying much, and New York Knicks that also seem to kind of start making a couple of moves that make sense. I thought they had a good draft pick, two good draft picks. So let's see. But I think at least they're going to move up from mediocrity, Charlotte, to a semi-interesting team to watch. I think them and Atlanta are kind of dark horses at the bottom of that playoff race.
Talking of big money and all of that, Fred VanVleet got himself a big payday. Pretty interesting story, because he went undrafted in the league, and this is the biggest contract for someone who went undrafted. 84 million over the next 4 years. That's pretty interesting. Pretty deserved, you would say, because he's helped Raptors to a title and he kept them relevant this year as well. Kind of went missing in the last few games against the Celtics where they got knocked out, but still a good with value for him, right?
I think Toronto as a whole really struggled towards the end against the Celtics. Fully deserved, right? Because this guy, along with Lowry, that's a championship backcourt. And this isn't just hyperbole. They are a championship backcourt. They won a chip on that backcourt. And these guys both came up big in the finals and throughout the offseason. So the postseason, sorry. Fred VanVleet absolutely deserves it. Good to see loyalty being rewarded. And in a world where Marcus Morris gets re-signed by the Clippers for $64 million over 4 years, for doing what? For getting bounced out in the second round, and largely where Marcus Morris himself flamed out from the three. if that's the kind of payday you get in that universe, in that economic situation, for VanVleet, a proven ring winner and a leader in the backcourt, to get 84 for 4 years, it's for me, that's a steal. I think VanVleet is worth a little bit more. But hey, if he's okay with that contract, good for him. I think it's nice to see, especially somebody who never got drafted, who had to go through that whole backdoor entry and prove himself and time and again, and get those limited opportunities in the first team and build from there. It's an incredible success story. A path that I'm sure people like Alex Caruso and the like would like to emulate.
Talking about big money and whatnot, we're still waiting on the Giannis deal. What is happening there? I mean, we were expecting him to sign a supermax. Plus, teams are interested. They are moving on now. What really is happening? Is the Bucks really going to keep him? Are they doing enough to keep him? What's really happening on the Giannis thing? Where do you think this will go?
Oh, there's so much to talk on this front. I thought the Bucks screwed up with the Bogdanovich deal. It doesn't matter who jumped the gun. Somebody jumped the gun. They made a hash of that whole situation. And I think what it is, and I'm sure it's being investigated by the league, but I think what it is they still didn't dot the I's, cross the T's, and they didn't go through all of the steps of the trade. Someone from either party, I don't know who it was, but it's highly likely it's from Milwaukee's side because they're the ones receiving the big player. Somebody jumped the gun and went ahead and announced it when it really wasn't even close to being done. And then the player said, hey, but wait, I didn't have a say in this, and blah, blah, blah. And there's that whole situation going on with Bogdan. Bogdan, who has an offer to move now from Atlanta, right? And and the Kings are on the clock. They have 48 hours to match starting yesterday. Anyway, now the Bucks, it's a good roster, right? When you look at that starting lineup, it's quite an awesome starting lineup, really. So I don't want to do disservice to them with Jrue Holiday and Giannis and Middleton and Brook Lopez. It's a formidable lineup, no doubt. But this is an East now where Atlanta is going on stacking player after player, and they're going to keep improving year after year. Philadelphia is just loading themselves up, and with Daryl Morey, moves are going to come. Brooklyn's the prohibitive favorite. Toronto is going to get stronger by next season. Boston are coming. In that conference, is this lineup enough? I'm not even sure this lineup makes the finals in the East. I'm not even talking about the NBA finals. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But it's not like a certainty. It's not like this is the team to beat. They're not. They were. They aren't anymore. And is that good enough for Giannis? Is that even, let's say they do get to the conference finals and lose. Is that good enough? Because I think at this point, if you're Giannis, you want the chip. You don't want to be a contender. You don't want to go to the conference finals. You don't want to go to the finals. You want the chip. I'm assuming that's what you want. A player of that caliber, that's what I'd want. So if that's on the cards, I don't think they have enough to convince him to sign a supermax. Unless he's so loyal that results don't matter, he's going to stay in Milwaukee. Seems unlikely. The word is he's trying to do his best to stay and see any possible scenario that lets him stay. But otherwise, he's out. And fair enough. Now, if he's out, and that looks increasingly likely, unless they land James Harden tomorrow or some such, and even then he'll probably be out because he hates James Harden. I don't think they have the squad to even make the Eastern Finals with any modicum of certainty. And if they don't, and Giannis is on the last year of his contract and he doesn't sign the supermax, then the Bucks are basically going all in, because at the end of next season, they can offer another supermax to Giannis, this time for a slightly lesser amount, but it's still a supermax. But they would be offering this to free agent Giannis, not Giannis who has 1 year left on his contract. And that free agent Giannis, the second he's a free agent, the vultures are going to pounce. There'll be 6-7 clubs all in his ear trying to whisper sweet nothing to him. So do Bucks really want to do that? Do they want to put themselves in a situation where they offer him a supermax? And then with what? If it's the same squad, or if they don't really, it gives them lesser and lesser time to put together that super squad that Giannis would need for him to be convinced to sign a supermax. So then you're basically risking losing him for nothing. That risk is made worse by the fact that they don't have first rounders for, I think, the next 3 or 4 years. They don't have too many or any first round picks. So where are they going to go if they lose their franchise player? All of this points to, if I were the Bucks, and I've said this too many times before, I don't think the Bucks can ever do enough in this short span of time to retain Giannis or put him in a position to get the success that he wants. In that case, they absolutely should trade him, and here I'll probably get giddy with the possibilities, but they should trade him this season. That's my take. unless there's some superstar move they've got up their sleeve and they can somehow make that work, like a Bradley Beal or some such thing, which doesn't seem to be on the cards really. They should trade him now because they're going to get a world of players in return, depending on where they send him. They're going to get picks in return, and they can set themselves up for the next half a decade at least, if not more, by trading Giannis right now. You don't gamble with a player like this and risk losing him for free.
Okay, interesting take. I mean, kind of caught me surprised because I don't think Giannis wants to move this year at least. I think Bucks will be willing to take that risk. I don't know if they're a good
Yeah,
enough team. I don't think they
I
are,
agree.
honestly.
I don't think Giannis wants to move either. At least not this year, right? I agree with that. I'm saying if I were the Bucks,
Mm-hmm.
would I rest my hopes and my franchise and my entire business on Giannis still being nice to me next season? When again the probability is we'll flame out in the playoffs and anyway not make the finals. Do I really want to rest my stakes on that? Because then it's even more. It's one more season of not going to the conference finals
Yeah.
or the finals with Giannis, and now he's a free agent. Now, on one hand, you're scrambling to put together the biggest moves possible to create a championship team, all while some other team has won the championship. And if it's LeBron, he's going to stack 4 more players on his squad next season. And the whole league's getting stronger and stronger. And Giannis is looking around like, oh, what the fuck? And the second he's a free agent, you know Dallas is going to pounce. You know Miami is coming. New York will probably whisper in his ears. Maybe the Lakers will make a run for it. The whole league, right now, you look at all of the situations around the league, the number of teams that are signing one-year deals like Dallas and the likes, the number of teams that are dumping salary, again Dallas. There are so many teams around the league right now clearing up cap space, signing only one-year deals, all to put themselves in position for Giannis's free agency next year. Like the whole league, the ripple effects of Giannis signing or not signing a supermax are huge. And I feel like Milwaukee should cash in now unless they're absolutely sure they can give Giannis what he wants and he's going to sign. If that's the case, keep him by all means. You're never going to get a player like that again in the next half a decade or decade or so. But
Fair
otherwise,
enough. So one big
bye-bye.
superstar signing, one big superstar move still on the cards this offseason then.
Yeah, I mean, looks like it. And by the way, Lakers and Anthony Davis, I can't imagine a reason why they would delay that signing so much. Unless it's because they're looking at the Giannis situation. If they're going to make a move this season or next season. If Giannis doesn't sign the Supermax, but he stays in Milwaukee, Lakers would probably go for a 1+1 deal with Anthony Davis, player option at the end of the year, because that's also what LeBron has. He has an option at the end of the coming season. So that then they both can opt out and do like a Miami Heat thing where they rejig the pay structures and try and fit in another max contract. I think that's the kind of move that the Lakers want to make. Dallas are already in place. Miami are delaying Bam Adebayo's contract. And he's the only guy from that draft class who deserves a big payday who's not got it yet. All of the others got paid, Tatum and Mitchell and all of that. So the whole league's really waiting. The entire commerce of the NBA right now revolves around what Giannis is or isn't going to do. I'd cash in.
No pressure for Giannis to make a decision there. Yeah. Talking about, you mentioned the rookie extension for Bam Adebayo, right? The max extension. And a couple of them have, actually 3 of them, big names have got a big payday. Jayson Tatum, who was kind of expected. Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz, his deal also was kind of expected, but big payday for him. And De'Aaron Fox from Sacramento Kings, who have not made the playoffs in 14 years. Jayson Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, I understand. De'Aaron Fox, is he good enough? What is your take on him? This guy.
That was a shocking contract. He's a great player, but that blew my mind. The kind of money that was offered to him. Tatum's a superstar in this league. He's going to be a perennial all-star for years to come. Fitness hopefully on his side. But that Boston team is tagged. He's the face of their franchise. That makes absolute sense. Utah, same thing. Utah came from nothing to a position of high relevance in the West, off the back of essentially Donovan Mitchell being the superstar. Because unlike Denver at least had a 2-star situation with Jokic and Jamal Murray in the playoffs. This was pretty much all Donovan Mitchell. Because they had Bogdanovich out for most of the postseason. Conley is a shell of what he was. Gobert is largely a defensive player and kind of a dinosaur breed in the NBA now because on offense he doesn't offer as much. He's not a stretch big. He's an elite defender. That's what keeps him relevant. But that's about it. So this really is Donovan Mitchell's team and they're going to build around him. So for a franchise superstar like that, absolutely, pay him. Just like Jayson Tatum in Boston. De'Aaron Fox, sure, he's the face of the franchise, but the face of what franchise? It's the
Mhm.
Kings are largely the Knicks of the West, slightly better run. The only bias anyone can have towards them is they have an Indian owner. That's about the only saving grace. And but I was shocked by that contract. It's going to be tough to trade him too with that sort of a deal.
Mhm.
I don't know, unless Charlotte comes and picks him up next season, I really don't see a way out. And he's not exactly the fittest of the lot either. He's had a few injury scares over the years. So I'm really surprised by De'Aaron Fox's contract. But that puts all the more pressure on Pat Riley and the Heat, because now literally everyone, including De'Aaron Fox, got paid from that draft batch or in and around that era of contemporaries. Bam Adebayo
Mhm.
was really the only one still waiting for a payday. And I feel like they're delaying his contract because they want to see what happens with the Giannis situation. And my guess is what they're saying to Bam is, wouldn't you want Giannis next to you to make a run and gun for the title and all of that? And can you wait it out? Interesting side, Ekta Kapoor sort of masala piece here. Bam and Giannis have the same agent.
Wow. Okay. That. Yeah. Yeah. I just realized that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Big paydays for the rookies. But talking about building a team and all of that, who does it better than LeBron James? Is he a player or is he a GM? I mean, he's stacking up. This is a championship winning team, right? And you barely needed some improvements to be a contender again. But you go on and you revamp your entire roster. You get in Dennis Schroeder, you get in Wesley Matthews, you get in Montrezl Harrell from your neighbors, Clippers. You re-sign Markieff Morris. You add Mark Gasol to that. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few other pieces as well. What is this team? I mean, this is like you're assembling the Avengers for some battling Thanos or something.
Yeah, but this is how you build a dynasty, and full credit to. I know LeBron's going to grab the headlines, but also Rob Pelinka. He put together a
Mhm.
chip winning team from nothing after Kawhi left them hanging in the
Yeah.
last minute. And look how they're moving in the postseason. And these are the defending champs. They're playing like they got bounced out in the first round of the playoffs. That's how they're playing in the offseason and making moves, wheeling and dealing everywhere. But this is how, and it's a bit of this dichotomy of blame of it's one standard for LeBron and one for everyone else. I guess he can take it, and that's why they keep throwing it at him. He's kind of like the Harvey Dent of the NBA, because the whole world does this. The whole world will do this if they can. But the second LeBron does it, it's a problem. And
Hmm.
that really speaks to how much he's feared and revered, because him getting stronger is just it just sends ripples along around the league, right? But think about a player who, for a decade, everyone on both sides of the NBA, all they did was build LeBron stopping teams. Like the Clippers last year were built to stop LeBron and whatever team he's on. They weren't built to stop the Nuggets, and they got undone by it, right? For 10 years, all that the East did was try and create teams that stopped LeBron, and that's all they did. And Giannis kind of has the same impact now.
Hmm.
Now, when the Golden State Warriors win the league, then they go and have a 72 win season the next season and lose in the finals.
Hmm.
And they add Kevin Durant to that team.
Hmm.
There were hues and cries, but largely only around how Kevin Durant made a weak move, not about how Steph Curry was recruiting or how Golden State was stacking. It was largely in the same vein as LeBron taking his talents to South Beach and that whole fiasco
Hmm.
nonsense that LeBron did before going to Miami. But it's amazing how when LeBron stacks it, it's a problem. When at the same time, in that same segment, we'll talk about KD and Kyrie trying to recruit James Harden, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's an exciting possibility, right? There's this duality that's always going to be there. But this is how championship franchises behave, and this is how dynasties are built. And the Lakers know this only too well. Their owner was probably the king of building dynasty after dynasty after dynasty, and now his daughter's taking it forward now. And full credit to them. As for the moves that they've made, I think they've upgraded almost in almost every department. Rondo, at least in the playoffs, will be a miss, but
Yeah.
they still have LeBron, and that can't be
True.
taken lightly. And I'm talking
True.
about not the player, but really the tactician and the floor general and all of that.
Hmm.
They've added in Dennis Schroeder, an amazingly versatile player. He can come off the bench, he can start, he's one of those gritty defenders like a Patrick Beverly with actual basketball skills. And and then here's the mind games part of it. You steal Montrezl Harrell, right? And let's go back just quickly to last season. Right? Kawhi Leonard gave them hope, thought they were signing him until the last minute, pulled the rug from under them, went to the Clippers of all teams, took Paul George with him, built a squad, gave the Lakers no time to recover, and yet they went and won the chip, the Lakers, while the Clippers flamed out. Now the Lakers are like, this is our turn now, and here come the mind games in reverse. So they pluck Montrezl Harrell from the Clippers. Rondo says he's not going to join the Clippers, goes some other way. I won't be surprised if there was some backdoor discussion that happened before he left. Okay. So he goes the other way. Now, Kawhi is obviously under pressure because a franchise moved heaven and earth to get him and everything that he wanted, and it didn't result in much. So now he, I guess, is going for a winning formula, something that he can already trust. So they went and got Ibaka from the Raptors, right? Yep. While they were doing this, the Lakers snatched Harrell away. So they weren't adding Ibaka really. They got Ibaka, but they lost Harrell in that process. They snatched Harrell away. And the reports were that the Clippers want to bring in Ibaka and Marc Gasol and create that big rim protection that Kawhi had in Toronto. And so the Lakers go and have Marc Gasol. These are gut punches to the Clippers. And it's like the Lakers at this point, it's not even like they're building a championship team. They know they can do that. They're building a team just to annoy the Clippers. Sometimes it seems like, and I'm loving it. I just love this drama. I hope the Clippers fight right back. I really want to see this Los Angeles rivalry go places. I think Ibaka is a fantastic signing. I'm a little concerned for the Clippers and how little they're doing in the offseason. I hope they add more and make this LA Derby rivalry thing a real thing.
Yeah, and just a final closing question for you. So the Lakers last year, they definitely improved their roster, and sometimes last year they didn't look like the favorites, right? Sometimes when you discuss the favorites, the Lakers had the question marks, although they had LeBron and AD, and you saw how it turned out. But still, the third man was missing. Like we kept saying it throughout the playoffs. Now, with this squad, they start off as favorites, and not just favorites. They start off as extreme favorites, I would call it, right? And or is there any question to that?
No, even if they ran the same squad back as last season, they would still start as favorites because the doubts were largely, nobody cared about the side pieces. The doubts were largely, it's the first season that LeBron and AD are playing together. How's that going to fare in the playoffs? And can they get a third scorer support? And they got that in the playoffs as a combination of Rondo in some games, KCP, Kuzma, etc., etc. Markieff Morris was a major impact too. So if they run it back, I'd still consider them favorites. Because we know that chemistry is set, it's only going to get stronger. And then they've upgraded each piece. Like Rondo for Schroeder, kind of an upgrade in some ways, not so much in some other ways, but overall I'd say a net positive move for sure. And then Danny Green's out. Wes Matthew comes in. Largely the same 3-and-D player, but probably much better defense because Danny Green seems to have lost that intensity. On 3 shooting, let's see. It remains to be seen how effective he is, but better defender for sure. Marc Gasol is a huge upgrade on McGee. Slight upgrade on Dwight Howard, I would say, because he's largely as good, if not better, as a defender than both of them. And he's a stretch big that can space the floor. So now you've got another 3-point threat that you can use every once in a while. You've got another screen in the pick and roll. And you've got a player that, because he can stretch the floor and space the floor, can create incredibly open lanes for AD to go and operate in. Because he's pulling away the rim protector to the perimeter, Marc Gasol. And the rim protector has to follow him to the perimeter because Gasol can shoot the 3. So then the whole rim area is exposed now, and AD is one-on-one with, and if AD is one-on-one, unless it's Embiid, nobody really stands a chance. So these are incredible moves, and they're upgrades in every department.
Absolutely, and we'll keep looking out for whom else they can add because they don't seem to be done yet. I mean, there were links to them with DeMar DeRozan, and God knows who knows. I'm kind of scared that this is going to be a easy walkover win for the Lakers this year because none of the teams seem to match up with their roster.
Yeah, they're incredibly strong, but the season's quite long. A bunch of things can happen. Form can drop. Injuries can happen. You never know. But yeah, they start as prohibitive favorites. I like the West though. I don't think a lot of teams are done in the West. We're still far from seeing the final picture, but I love how the West is shaping up. And also just from an NBA Finals perspective, whoever gets there, and the Lakers, of course, favorites to get there, but whoever gets there are going to run into some pretty interesting teams from the East, led by the Brooklyn Nets and KD and Kyrie, and let's see who else they add, because I don't think they're even close to being done. Nor do Philadelphia seem to be close to being done. Milwaukee. So there's lots to come. Right now, I mean, it's scary how far ahead Lakers are of the pack.
Absolutely. Looks like we're run out of time, but a lot of moves to discuss. We'll keep going at it as we build up to the start of the season, which is less than a month away, I realize. And it's going to be an
Yep.
interesting time. A lot more moves to happen, but we'll keep doing this. And as always, it was fun talking to you and catch you soon.
Sounds good. Take care. See you.